Stigma is one of several barriers for people seeking mental health care. We've already touched on it. Why do you think stigma is so pervasive? I'll tell you, when I joined Brother Be Well, the Brother Be Well team, 8 or so months ago, it was so important to me that we address stigma head on. And we've got a whole series. This conversation is one of a series of issues where we're trying to get at stigma across ages and demographics, across ethnic groups. Why does stigma hang around? Why has it hung around so long? Why is it so very pervasive, you think? Dr. Ton, maybe you can start us out there. What are your thoughts on that?
Gosh, I think that this is the billion-dollar question. Why is stigma so pervasive? Because as Dr. Haggins and others have said, stigma has a direct impact on a person's mental health and their physical health. The very experience of stigma causes depression and anxiety. The structural stigma that Dr. Haggins talked about, and some will call it institutional stigma, I think it's one of the reasons why stigma is so pervasive. It's really embedded in a lot of our systems. And I'll say, quite honestly, in healthcare systems, for example, people who have mental health conditions often have less quality primary care, less screening. All of those things contribute to physical challenges as well. I think that part of the reason why stigma is so pervasive is that it's hard to see, it's hard to quantify, it's hard for us to touch it, to examine it, and yet it's connected also to a person's feeling of self-worth and the judgments of worth within many of the communities that we work with. And so it's not just an individual thing. If it were an individual thing, it would be, I think, easier to address. But we really have to take a community lens to addressing stigma. We have to look at stigma as it impacts not only the individual, but the family as well. Families experience stigma, and in experiencing stigma, they can also perpetuate stigma as a way to sort of protect families. In Asian and Pacific Islander families, for example, there's a lot of fear of family shame. And so even as family members want to take care and protect their loved ones who are sick, that fear of being stigmatized as a family prevents them from engaging with healing practices, and that perpetuates stigma as well. And so, the big challenge in all this is that, if people do get appropriate treatment for mental health conditions, 70 to 90% of people get better. That's better than a lot of medical conditions. Wow. And so the big question that we have is not that the science is showing us that mental health treatment works. The call that I have to our audience is, do we have the will to put in place the public and institutional investments to make that happen, to actually address mental health conditions through proven treatments? And that's I think the big impact that stigma has, is that it bars us from treatment that actually can be very effective and healing.
Wow, so thoughtful. Any of our other guests have anything to add to that?
Dr. Ton, you actually brought up something that made me think about something that I personally experienced. I've been a nurse for 16 years. I spent the earlier part of my career working specifically in mental health in an inpatient facility. And the moment I realized the intersection of me as a nurse and a healthcare provider and also a family member, and witnessing the impact of stigma in my own family, it made me realize how insidious stigma is. Even a person like me that is trained to know better and be more aware and attuned and have cultural humility about differences, I found myself falling into those same norms that were in my family. And I finally woke up one day. I was dealing with a family member that suffered from depression and substance abuse, and I finally woke up one day to speak out about it, because I knew innately that what they were doing with the shame and not addressing and praying away the issue was not right. But I, as a bystander, I was scared to step outside of those family norms and the hierarchy in our family. And there's a respect level, someone's your elder. And I realized like it wasn't a easy thing to do. And that's just, and this is someone, you know, like myself that knows better and knows the importance of mental health treatment. And I know how effective it is. And it was really difficult. And I think that's the insidious nature of stigma, is that it is so ingrained in so many levels that you can actively participate or passively participate and continue that stigma. So it's really, I agree with you, Dr. Ton, in the sense that from a community stand, we really do have to work together and amplify these issues.
I couldn't agree more. And we're going to touch on some of that with this next question. Thank you for sharing that, Sheree. I had a similar experience in my own family, having grown up with well, I won't name the relatives, some are still with us, but with a line of relatives who, you know, kind of pummeled me with a message. Only crazy people go to therapy. Only crazy people go to therapy. So 20, 25 years later, when I found myself at a point where I needed some therapy, it was a big effort for me to look someone up and actually walking in that door the first time, because I felt like I was bucking against everything that I had heard and everything I had been taught, and I had to unlearn some of those messages. So I appreciate that candor and transparency and sharing that.